All right, seems like it's recording. Welcome everyone to today's edition of the SIG Instrumentation meeting. It looks like we have a few items on the agenda. The first one being a consensus on moving CRD logic out of KSM. I don't know who.
I brought this up to
Okay.
I was talking to Pranchu about this. I always refer to Pranchu by his handle, but
Yeah.
sorry. So the CRD logic in KSM is super bifurcated, which means not only does it not really share the same code, but like we basically have two code paths, and we also have two different APIs, and it's super confusing for users. And in my opinion, it is worth considering having something like CRD state metrics.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. That is definitely on the table.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like it
Yeah, definitely.
complicates the code base for KSM, and it's like whenever we do an optimization for one, we have to do it for the other, and we don't even know if it's going to work. We can introduce bugs from one to the other. It's like it's a complete mess, right?
That's why, like, one of the idea I had was to like unify the configuration for both.
That's going to be hard.
Not necessarily. If you make core metrics, like core API metrics, customizable in the same way as CRD metrics, then you can share the same config API.
I have one more argument against it. Even if we were to standardize across CRDs and regular metrics, we already have cardinality concerns with cube state metrics for normal metrics. Now, when we're talking about cross-plane, where you have thousands of CRDs, we are going to run into similar scalability limits for just CRDs. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I mean, today you can already.
So that what people are going to end up doing, like, look, if I have a cluster, a huge cluster, and I'm ingesting metrics from KSM, what am I going to do? I can't use the sharding technique because informers share caches. So the memory consumption of KSM is going to be basically constant across all of my replicas. What I can do is have one replica set of KSM that watches some set of resources, right? Then I create another replica set, deploy KSM again, and watch some CRDs.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
if
that's
you're
already
doing
possible.
Yeah, but if you're doing that, then you might as well have a second CRD state metrics. It would just be cleaner. Like people are actually using them as if they were two different binaries, is my point.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, I agree that at scale, it should definitely be run separately for scalability issues, and as well as you always like you want more availability or like less disruption on your core metrics than you want on your CRD. So the more stable the core metrics are, the better. So like moving out all the CRD stuff is definitely safer in that sense, and that's already possible. The main issue I would have with splitting the repos is that custom state metric, like the CRD state metric, relies on a lot of code from kube state metric that we would have to make as library. And
I think that's also good practice. That's not bad practice.
Can be pretty tedious. That's why, like, I saw, like, if we take it like really on a high level, like just in theory, there is no reason for both projects to be different. Like the code at their source should be the same. Like it's essentially doing the same thing, just on different type of resources. So that's why I wanted to unify the configuration.
But the code is not the same. The code is not the same.
It could be the same theoretically.
Yeah, but we're going to be introducing cell, and we're not going to be introducing cell for the normal metrics.
We could. So
We
the thing is
could.
that the thing that I'm considering, although manual had some concerns, was that if we made, like, instead of having Go code in cube state metric, like for the core metrics, we could have cell representation of the metrics. Everything would be coded in configuration, and you would have the same thing as CRD, and we would just provide like defaults that then user can extend.
No, here's one more argument. One more argument. We're using custom collectors right now to generate our metrics. If
Yep.
we switch to CRD state metrics, we can actually use Prometheus metrics.
No,
Yeah,
no, because the reason why we use custom collectors is because it reduces the resource usage of cube state metric. And we've noticed that at the scale we are producing metrics and storing them in cache, like it just doesn't work. Like it just doesn't scale if we move away from this custom.
that's true for
thing.
normal metrics. Are you sure that's true for CRDs?
That's the same logic. And so if you have a lot of CRDs and as such a lot of metrics, then I'm pretty sure that would be
Only
the
if there's a lot of churn.
was it the churn?
I mean, yes, it's because of the pods and containers and the churn that we did this custom stuff. It was a huge optimization. CRDs are not like that. They're not like pods. They're not ephemeral. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So like basically what we're doing is we're taking this one thing that we did, one optimization we made for pods and containers because of the cardinality issues. We use these custom collectors so that we can wipe them when the containers freaking go away. But CRDs don't follow this paradigm, and we can use regular Prometheus metrics. And this is much simpler, one, for people to read. Two, we can have static analysis and stability levels, and all of this stuff just becomes infinitely easier. Like infinitely easier. And so
Yeah.
why would we just shove it into cube state metrics when like the cleanest solution is CRD state metrics?
Okay. Yeah, I still have a hard time finding like.
I mean, it's a lot of work. I agree, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah,
the
if
work,
we don't take
the
into
work,
consideration like if we speak like just like without considering the resource involvement in terms of person and
agree.
maintenance.
No, that is the most valid argument.
That
is
is
like the amount of work.
The main problem for sure.
Yes,
but
I agree 1000%. The work is the biggest issue, but everything else, like logically speaking, indicates CRDs would be better off in its own repo. Right? If we had infinite resources, infinite number of people willing to do this, then I think it's a no-brainer. Like to me, it's a no-brainer. We should just do CRD state metrics, right?
I still don't know, to be honest, because
I mean, they're even talking about partitioning CRDs into a separate etcd instance.
Oh yeah, that would definitely make sense.
Yeah,
and it would make sense for a lot of resources, such as events, for example. They should be like completely somewhere else.
Yeah, it's an API machinery proposal at the moment. Okay. And I'm just saying that it makes sense here too. Like I'm just saying partitioning CRDs from regular resources makes sense in general as a concept.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find, because I hear the reason you mentioned, like especially the one about stability framework. Although, like we would have to introduce the stability framework for KSM anyway, so we would have to find
it's going
a way
to be
with
hard.
the current
It's going to be hard, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's going to be hard. Like we would have to at least get a new major for sure. But I don't know if you at the.
I don't know if you can write the static analysis pipeline for it. I shudder to think about that.
That's very hard. But I mentioned to Wojtek recently that like I asked him if we could use cube state metric metrics for PRR approval, like PRR requirements.
I was in the
require
PRR
metrics.
meeting when we discussed it.
Yeah, so you discussed it, I see. And one of the main counter argument, like I asked if that was possible, but the counter argument was like, we don't have any stability framework, so I don't know where it landed. But since there is no stability, it's still hard. So I think to move forward, we'd have to do it anyway.
No, not only to move forward do we have to do it, but our stability framework has to align with Kubernetes.
Yeah,
It cannot be different. Stable cannot mean two different things if we want these to be used for PRR. We had this meeting in PRR. Like, I am a PRR shadow. I'm trying to
I
become
know,
a
that's
reviewer.
why I mentioned it.
Yeah, and the thing is, I just told them to CC me on anything where people are trying to use KSM metrics for PRR review, because in some cases it makes sense, in some cases it doesn't. It's really a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I mentioned also. It was like, well, if they want to monitor an actual API, and that's kind of high on cardinality, maybe it makes more sense to have it in KSM and instead of trying to reduce the cardinality in KK. That's not necessarily like a good idea. But yeah, but generally, yeah, I think I don't know about the custom collector thing because
can you kick out Mina's autopilot bot?
Yeah.
Because that's really annoying.
How do I do that? Yep.
Thank you.
Um,
These AI bots are trying to take over the world.
Yeah, I will try to think about it again. But one of the main reason why I wanted to unify in the first place and make it more like align at least both implementation was because we've got requests recently, or like more and more requests to make changes to the core metrics that we have that doesn't really fit keep state metric and the ID that we have behind it, like the best practices and stuff like that. And at some point I'm like, well, like we can propose a actual like same default that everybody can use, but they should also feel empowered to change it the way they want. Like if they want to customize it in a way that they have a particular metric that, like in my opinion, shouldn't be in cube state metric, but they want it anyway. Like I feel like they should be able to do so. So that's why I wanted it to kind of align with the way we have like with Cell, so that anyone really can have their own metrics and they don't need really to wait for our approval, understand the code base or anything.
Okay. So you and I have expressed our opinion. I think Pranchu and Richa should chime in and tell us what you guys think about cube state metrics and CRD metrics, if you guys have strong opinions about it or what you guys think.
Yeah, I can go. So looking at where KSM is currently, right now, the like Damien mentioned, the way metrics are generated, the way the stores are implemented for native as well as CRDs is more or less the same. We could even, the logic is it's more or less the same. We could there's actually a to-do in from the original implementation to merge those, and it's not really a big thing, but there's instances across the code base where you would find similar logic, and it's kind of within that same ideology to expose it in such a way that people can extend native metrics as well. But just to add on to that, with the variable vcase PR that I made, where you can specify wildcards, we disabled that functionality for native metrics. So using the configuration, you can generate metrics for CRDs, but not for native resources, because those are not.
And that makes sense, right? Because CRDs are dynamic, right?
Yeah. And so we only basically base it off of CRD informers, so it was not possible also. But it made sense.
It doesn't make sense for regular resources because you know the fields.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also like one of the reasons was mainly because the users were trying to hack by using the custom metrics configuration to modify the metrics, like the core metrics that we have. And we're like, well, that's not what we intended, and then let's not allow that.
Yeah. So we basically just took a strict stance here and disabled that anyway. But yeah, if we talk about, in the future, if we want to move away, then it would in most, I think, areas make things easier to understand and to incorporate in the long term, because all this, all the native metrics, all the native resources that people expect would just come out of KSM. But the custom resource, the custom metrics repository would be completely dynamic, and people can just do whatever they want there. And at the same time, KSM itself would be stable with the metrics framework and all that, with the stability framework. Yeah. But I just wanted to ask, Han, when you proposed this, separate repository, how do you envision, we collect these CRD metrics? Would it be the same way KSM does right now, or
I think we could work on the cell stuff. We could, and this could be like the problem also right now is KSM is actually like production ready theoretically. However, CRD metrics are not really production ready, and we get lots of issues for it. And if we had a separate repo, we could be like, this is like version 0.0 patch 42, right? And then people would know this shit is like kind of broken, right? Except right now they don't know it's kind of broken because KSM is stable, supposedly, but it's not, right? And so people get bitten all over the place for it. So it's like, it's actually like a terrible idea to introduce this huge feature, then start changing the API every other week on it, because people get super freaking confused and it breaks everything in production.
Yeah, to be honest, I think that's a really urgent matter. And I discussed that also with Pancho. Like, it's really urgent for us to fix custom state metric. Like maybe
if
one
we do
of
it
the
in a
most
separate
urgent thing that we
if
have
we
in
do
our...
it, if we do it in a separate repo, we can take our time to get the implementation right.
Oh, we can
don't have
already
to
take our
rush.
time to do it right. It's just that like we have to focus on the design soon, because like we shouldn't modify the API anymore or try as little as possible. No breaking chain for sure, but try not to add any new stuff and focus really on what it should look like in the future. That's really like something we need to focus on pretty soon, because it's getting very messy. Like, it's nearly impossible to maintain, and it's nearly impossible for the users to actually use it.
Yeah.
One
So,
question. So is this
Yeah.
going to be like a breaking change for existing users if you have to move this to a new repo? And how do we support people who are using KSM for CRD metrics?
Not necessarily. You
I think
oh wait. Yeah,
it
it will
could
be.
continue for the next, X releases. I think 1 or 2 releases with the current configuration, just to give them time. And then
Oh, okay. So have some like notice window before you make that
yeah,
change.
like the
Yeah. I think the main problem is like changing the image location, because you cannot really redirect, because there is only one image at the moment. So yeah, they would have to make the switch. But I'm thinking like there's a lot of things to change with Keep State Metric, and I think we should set up a reoccurring meeting for the next months or so to really try to come up with the design of where do we want the custom state metric to be at and what we need to do. Because yeah, that's pretty important and urgent, I feel like.
Or maybe we should have like a who's going to KubeCon, because this would be a good face-to-face conversation about the future of KSM.
I think I'm the only one from Red Hat, and I don't know if maybe Manuel is coming. I need to check with him.
So you got approved.
Yeah.
Okay, so then if they don't approve me, I'm probably going to pay out of pocket to go. So I will be there.
Okay. Yeah, but I
Um,
think in the meantime we should still discuss it. Like I think having a reoccurring meeting, like maybe every week or every 2 weeks, just to make sure like we make some progress with the design, could be a good start.
okay, I will engage Catherine so she can set something
Yeah.
up because
Yes.
she's been kind of leading some of this
Yeah.
effort.
Yeah, and I can help
Okay.
her like schedule it.
Okay, sounds good. What's
Just
else on the? Oh,
Yeah, let's
just
do the last item on the agenda, so that we can cover everything.
I just wanted to add one thing before we
Yeah.
just move on, just to quickly. So I just wanted to make this explicit. The cell solution is for the labels, right? And that's it. I mean, so in the config, we have all these different options right now to for
yes, it's
custom
terrible.
behavior. Yeah.
Yes, it's
So
terrible.
it means that even in the future, we might run into something just like this, where we keep adding behaviors that are not covered within the cell label config, and then it's difficult to scale. Even if it's in a different repository.
Style is pretty expressive, though.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
definitely
basically Turing complete.
Yeah, I think we should be fine, and we can try to run, like, we have time to design. We can run a couple of use cases, and then once it's
For
somewhat
sure.
ready, we can
I'm not
try it
super
with a
worried
couple
about
of users and let them try to experiment and see if there is any problem with
I'm
it.
not super worried about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Like it covers the whole CRD use case.
I'm not super worried about it.
It's like way more than what CubeSat metric needs.
So, I mean, for example, if someone wants a particular prefix like we have for metrics right now, and they wanted to add to every single label that's generated, so that's a custom behavior that's going into the config. And now we have a particular function that does that. And then they want a particular suffix, and then they want regex support within that. So that's like 3 different, or maybe just one thing that's being messed up, and it's starting to look like how it's right now. So I mean, just entire functions or custom behaviors that could only be coded within a Turing complete way.
Yeah, I think we already have like a lot of use cases from the current config. Like we can try to list them and then try to write them in cell and see if there are any limitation, but we can definitely do that as part of the design.
Yeah.
Like if we can cover at least like all the use cases that we know today, we should be
we should time box this because we still have like 3 minutes.
Just like some run through on it to talk and
I can
use
just
item
quickly.
Yeah.
Damien, can you go with that comment?
Yeah. You can say. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just give a summary here. It's basically, the fact that the libraries that we use, they don't. So I just basically try to haze out on the confusion with this comment where the libraries support open metrics, and that supports exemplars.
I knew it, right? Like the proto thing doesn't actually work, right?
Yeah, and
what?
The server
itself,
the Prometheus server itself, that is what supports protobuf.
I prototyped this like a year and a half ago. I prototyped this a year and a half ago, and I used open metrics, and open metrics is not deprecated back then.
Yeah,
it's not deprecated still.
So we can still use open metrics within the library. So it's everything's really smooth if we use open metrics because that's in DTO right now. But if we use Prometheus server, if we want protobuf, then it's a dependency on the user because they have to enable this native histograms flag, which really doesn't make sense because that's basically the feature flag that's
no, we should fix client Golang Prometheus.
Yeah.
So that they have an extra flag to enable exemplars.
Yeah, I mentioned this
exemplars needs to be like protobuf as a whole needs to be enabled on the server, and that's the only way today. There is no negotiation for it. You need to enable on the back. Like
or we could just enable it wholesale. Why can't we enable exemplars wholesale on Prometheus client Golang?
Yeah, that would be the best, possible outcome from this. It would take some time, but
let's
if
just
we
wait for
could-
Bjorn to come back and we can just ask him.
yeah, because open metrics depends. So if open metrics uses the same exemplar protobuf format that's in DTO, which we can use for protobuf if we introduce it in client program. So it's
But I think
like
it's
half of
totally
that.
reasonable to tell users for now, because the goal long term for client polling and Prometheus is to make negotiation like seamless, meaning that you don't need to enable anything on the client nor the server, and it will choose the best possible negotiation format depending on what you enable, like what you use. So that's what they want to do. But like in the meantime, you can always tell our users that if they want to use native histograms in Kubernetes or exemplars, they need to enable this flag on their Prometheus backend.
And there was this one discrepancy that I found where
I need to
even-
run. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no worries. We can continue that later or even on the PR.
Okay, sounds great.
Sorry for cutting it short. I'm sure we can continue offline if you want.
Yeah.
yeah,
All right. See you everyone. Bye bye.
bye.